Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smudcast number 700. How to write a bigot, and then in parentheses, without sounding cringe. This is usually what we don't cover. We do have one or two YouTubers that we cover about writing, and they're usually so ridiculous and bombastic and silly. It's just like, oh, we have to listen to all these words and very little makes sense, or it's all theoretical. With this person, we have a disclaimer. And I'm going to read a bit of this just because it sounds hilarious. But this video discusses a lot of topics like racism, sexism, homophobia, all the phobias. So it's not just like racism, it's all of them. So I don't know, this person understands how English works, but okay. And some mentions of abusive relationships. Okay. This is done through an apolitical lens. Okay.
Yay!
In other words, it's going to be a bunch of leftist dribble.
Well, they say
Not necessarily. This could be a disclaimer against trying to protect against attacks from the left by saying, I recognize all your woes, but I want to talk about it objectively, which is haram in leftism.
it would be nice if that was the case. The next paragraph starts, though, this is not a statement of political expression, even though you just stated a political statement, but that's okay. Whatever political implications that come off of this are not my opinions. Okay, so he's saying, hey, I'm just being objective. I don't know what's going on. I'm just making obvious statements.
I think he's trying to say, I'm not this type of person I'm describing, but this is a good way to write a bigoted character.
I guess. The next sentence is bad grammar, except and racism. I don't know what that means. Sexism, homophobia, and other forms of discrimination are bad. Okay.
Ooh, what an opinion.
That should be
Wow,
obvious, though. It's like,
I feel like, this definitely seems like a please don't crucify me kind of thing.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's coming across as, hey, I want to be like analytical. I want to make sense. I want to just observe the world for what it is and say, this is how you do the thing. Like, how would you write a Hitler character? Okay, fine, fair enough. And he's like, whoa, this is not political or anything. It's like, you're writing a Hitler character. What are you talking about? That's exactly what you're doing. So he's trying to wipe his ass while taking a shit. Anyway, if that's not obvious to you, get help. It's like, whoa, dude, calm down.
And that seems a bit passive aggressive.
He is defending himself, and now he's attacking. It's very weird.
It seems pretty preemptive.
Okay, so that's the disclaimer. The thing that also worries about me is he has these examples.
I think it's how you need to talk to the leftist mob in order for them to get the message. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you're dumb.
Yeah. So he's gonna.
But that's not a good way to defend your argument.
So
because it's not a message for us. It's a message for the socialist mob.
Right.
I understand.
So this mob you need to talk the message of the mob in order for the mob to understand you.
I understand that, but just insulting or demeaning your critics isn't a defense. It's a deflection.
Well, it's a statement of saying, if it's not obvious to you, get help. Is like, okay, dude, like, you didn't have to say that. Anyway, the spoilers are for Ruby, Madoka Magica, High Guardian Spice. These are probably 3 examples that you would not want to use teaching English or how to write a villain or how to write a bigoted fellow. Ruby, don't even go near. High Guardian Spice, just forget it out of your memory. Madoka Magica has all kinds of weird themes that are a little bit advanced beyond the concept of racism or homophobia or anything like that. So anime is its own tone and vibe, and it's very complex. So I wouldn't even recommend that. But this guy obviously likes...
The only reason I've ever recommended any of these things is if you like...
I've never seen... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Carry on.
I was going to say, I've never actually seen any of these shows, nor have I heard anything particularly good about them.
Okay, well, he's doing other references like the Teen Titans, Static Shock, Jamie DeJong, and the Bloodland Saga. So I think that's his own self-promotion on Amazon, so I'm assuming it's a book. Anyway, this is...
How long is this video, Ben?
It is almost 20 minutes. it's
20 minutes.
yeah.
Oh my god.
This is going to be tough
We're
because
going to be here for hours.
yeah, because I've listened to my share of writers and not writers but teachers who teach writing, and this is not something that would ever come up. This is not a question a student would have because a student everyone knows what a bigot is. It's not hard. You could argue the protagonist and antagonist of a character of a story are bigots because they have a one-track mind or they have one goal. Nothing's going to change it. And they're going to keep going that way until they hit the climax, and then one of them dies or changes their mind. That's a bigot. In the negative sense, it's someone who discriminates against other people as a result of their unchanging viewpoint. So, to write a bigot is not that complicated. It's not that hard. It's based off setting, time zone. If you're in a fantasy world, why are they the way they are, etc. It's very simple. It's like writing any other character, but they're only one way. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So you don't need a 20-minute video. You need a 20-second explanation from a good teacher. So,
in other words, make them a stubborn asshole.
You can make them a nice, stubborn fellow. Yeah, you can make them any personality you like. They just have a belief in one thing, like X, and they disregard Y. That's all it is.
That could literally be used to describe the majority of the human population.
Sure. It's not hard. Either way. Oh. I'm going to decrease Whisp's volume just because...
I already put down the output.
Oh, thank you. You have a wonderful microphone, so everyone else doesn't. That's the problem.
Is mine a little too loud? I can adjust the volume.
No.
We had issues on TeamSpeak where somehow I was super quiet and nothing could change it, so I increased the local side, but it didn't affect TeamSpeak, so I left it where it was. Now I put it down again.
All right. I think we're ready to go. Let us see how good or bad. I don't know. From the disclaimer, everything looks horrible, but we will see what happens. Here we go.
Whether fictional or real, every single world has its own evil, prejudice. Prejudice is found in every civilization, and there are many reasons that one may want to portray it in their work of fiction. It can tell detail about the world or society. It can build a character. It can deliver a message. Whatever the intention, fantasy or realistic, for your book or just a D&D campaign, portraying bigotry may be a hard and uncomfortable thing to do, but when done correctly, it can add significant meaning and impact to your work. But portraying prejudice in a work can be a bit hard to do without making it sound, how do I put this, cartoony. Lots of media tries...
No, it doesn't have to sound cartoony unless you're writing for a cartoon. Why is...
And you're using a cartoon as an example.
Right, that's probably the bad way of doing it. If your problem is cartoons, don't use cartoons as an example, lady.
It's like cartoons, by their nature, are usually pretty exaggerated in their portrayal of characters, especially your villains.
You need that. Yeah.
If you mean something else with the term cartoony, then you need to define that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely have a character, Hushbird. You can definitely have a character that's over the top and overly exaggerated outside of a cartoon environment. Like an example you showed earlier was Draco Malfoy. Especially in the second movie, was it when he called her that? Where he's just really over the top, pompous, little, my daddy's in the government, so I'm the hot shit. That's a very cartoony portrayal of a character that's not in a cartoon setting.
And you're talking about kids going to a junior high school setting where you're going to have conflict. You're going to have friends and enemies. That's normal in school. So that's
it's more of a class issue, really. Obviously, with it being gay. So obviously, the bigotry comes from that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it could be any kind of denomination of why someone does not like someone else. So you could issue it with class, you could do it with skill, you do it with attraction, lack of respect. There's all kinds of ways to make conflict, and you can call that bigotry if you like, but it sort of like is missing the point. You're going to have conflict. Like, if you don't have conflict, you're wasting everyone's time. So yes, do bigotry, do egoism, do superiority, do inferiority, do anything you like, so long as there's a conflict with each of the characters you create.
Kind of comes off as shoehorning in an agenda or sounding like a children's PSA, and many are rightfully worried about their own work going down this path. And as someone who just had to write a raging sexist as a main character, even though I'm a woman, I'm going to show you...
Oh, you should have no problems doing that then.
That's going to be through a completely unbiased, open-minded lens.
Oh, God.
I thought that's built into the female sex.
Raging sexist.
I know of women, so she should have much difficulty, really.
Oh, dear.
How being cartoony while still portraying the horrible reality of prejudice and bigotry.
Wait. You said we don't want to be cartoony, and now we are? Let's rewind this.
Character, even though I'm a woman, I'm going to show you how to avoid being cartoony while still portraying the horrible reality of prejudice and bigotry. First, let's look at the bigot themselves, because this is where the majority...
Well, one trick is to have met real ones.
That works. But even then, if the rule is to write an antagonist, that's not necessarily a component of antagonism. You could just have anyone who believes in anything and doesn't change their mind. That's a bigot. It could be a main character, it could be supporting cast, it could be anyone.
Yeah, it could be on Team Good and have this flaw.
Yeah, that's fine.
In fact, we've even seen that with one of the GameCube era of Fire Emblem games. The archer was openly racist throughout the game, and that was a flaw he had to overcome.
Was he an elf?
No, a human character. I forget his name. I never played the GameCube Wii era Fire Emblem games. I think it was Pat the Radiance, one of the archers. I don't remember his damn name.
Well, racist archer screams elf to me.
Okay.
It really does.
Superiority, class, yeah, all kinds of things.
go wrong. Here is the biggest key when writing any antagonist, any bully, or just any bad person in general. The
antagonists are bad. No, not really, but okay.
I mean, usually the antagonist is a villain in the story, but you can also have an antagonist who's just kind of a smug asshole throughout the story.
No, it doesn't need to be a villain. No, not at all. No.
That's what I'm getting at.
When you're talking about
one example is Patrick Higharms in the first Cold Steel game in Legend of Heroes arc. He is an antagonist, but he's not the main villain. He's just kind of a prick.
Yeah, the thing is, what people seem to always mistake is antagonist doesn't always mean villain. Antagonist is just a person who is against the protagonist.
Right.
So you can have a protagonist who is evil, and the antagonist could be, say, a police officer chasing after him.
Yeah, exactly.
All in all, a good guy. So
I give the example of a romance genre because the protagonist is the main character, usually a guy. The antagonist is usually a girl, and there's nothing evil about her. She's just the girl or the woman. So it depends what she's talking about. So she's clearly referring to some sort of physical conflict, struggle, fantasy, animation, or something. She's basing her examples on, I guess.
Yeah. I think it comes down to obviously people misunderstanding the term antagonist because it's become so intertwined with villain.
Yeah, I think the bonk on the head example would be in video games. Play Dungeon Keeper, where you are the evil demon lord that builds a dungeon to take over the world of the good people on the surface.
Actually, that sounds like it'd be a fun game.
Always has a motivation for their actions. No one does wrong because it's just wrong. No one just wakes up one day and decides that they're going to be homophobic. People...
Wait, why not? Why can't we write a character like that?
But people do.
I mean, I guess...
It's I hate to break it to you, but that's the standard built-in mechanism in humans.
You're different, so I don't like you.
Yeah.
No. It's not about the difference. It is, at least for male homosexuality, that triggers a threat and disgust response. Because throughout human history, the only possible type of intercourse for male homosexuality is a massive spread of disease.
I understand that she wants to bring in motivation, but this is any character you write regardless, so it doesn't have to be specifically an antagonist, but I would hope if you write a villain or any sort of opposing force that they have a good reason for being that, and it makes sense. The writer goes, oh, I like this character, or bad guy, because they have reasons to be here, and that's what you do.
So for your cringe PSA, which he tries to avoid, please use condoms. You might get rid of the stigma in about 100 or 200 years if you stick to it.
Okay.
Do bad things because they believe they have a justification, no matter how stupid, simple, or unreasonable that justification might be. It could be something simple like, I'm having a bad day, or I deserve this, or someone believing in a completely different reality, and we'll get to that later. It's like stealing the last donut in the office. Say you probably already had one donut. Maybe somebody else didn't get one, but you really want that second donut.
If it's
even though you
there
know
for
it's
everyone,
bad.
it's not stealing.
Why?
That's not a good example.
I think her verbs need some help.
It's like, snagging the last donut for yourself when you've already had one and the person you took it over hasn't. That's a dick move, but that just makes you Homer Simpson.
I'm questioning
we call that the courtesy leftover that nobody ever touches, and then it tends to usually be thrown away because nobody wants it.
This is a red flag for me, because if my English teachers or writing teachers aren't excellent at grammar, I stop listening to them, because I've met excellent teachers who are way better at grammar than I am, and she's using different verbs to explain something improperly, and I don't like that.
And her examples are just a little oversimplified. Like, if you roll back, you see the 3 examples she's having, like, live in a completely different reality, and it shows people she doesn't agree with.
Anyway, yes, you can take more than one donut or baked good when they are at work because they're bought for the group and no one else wanted it, so it's okay. You can take it. Anyway.
So, you know.
It's because you asked, does anyone want the last donut?
Yeah.
Now you see, that's a courtesy. Like, hey, anyone care if I grab this? No? Take it.
Even then...
And if nobody asks, it gets thrown away because nobody wants to be the asshole.
And it's assumed that you could eat more than one because no one else wants it, and it's not like a big deal.
It's basically like a sacrifice to the gods of the trash bin.
Okay.
I mean, it's almost like she's saying, I know, when that last donut, you all have to go into like a battle royale for it, you know, and make your own antagonist and fight your way through for that glazed goodness.
I have to justify my desire for a second donut.
I have to justify my bloodlust for this last donut.
Here's my justification. I was still hungry and I wanted it.
No, it's not like that. You write it. His justification for getting this donut. He didn't like faggots.
Oh, God. And there goes the monetization.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we were monetized? All right, then.
Yeah, anyway.
Bad day. Maybe you worked so hard this week and you think you deserve that donut. Whatever it is, you have a justification in your mind for taking that donut, even if you know it might be wrong. I'll use an example
Why
that
is it
might
wrong?
work. Here is a fight between a girl and her manipulative ex-boyfriend.
Oh my God.
They are arguing, and the ex-boyfriend
I don't want to read that.
is pulling up all
Is
of
this
these
just
reasons to
did she
shame
say this was
her
an example of
in
her own writing?
Yeah, probably.
I feel like this is just a massive self-promotion for her own books.
That's a lot of italics.
Anyway, that is, yeah, you're right. Again, whenever I see bad writing, and it's like, it points, like, I don't have to read it. I just look at it and go, yeah, why are there so many italicized words everywhere on every paragraph?
They're for emphasis. And you know it was just a talk. You were cheating on me with this guy. You left me for this. He's just doing this for emphasis. so that you know what to emphasize. But yeah, it's don't do that.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
Denise interfering is him simping for her rather than trying to defend his
don't use
friend.
that word.
In Jack's eyes, Cecily's crying is her trying to manipulate him and Denise instead of her just having an emotional moment. In his eyes, she's playing the victim. Her talking to another guy is really just her flirting.
I have no idea.
Her siding.
Those are both girls' names.
To be honest with you, if you look at the descriptions of both men, they're both literally just feminized twinks. And it's like, right.
Okay.
She's using her own writing as an example, but most people won't have read her book.
Well, this is what you don't do.
Or this Google document page.
Yeah, don't have like, hey, I wrote this story. Here's a 2-pager of me doing it right. And I'm like, can you get to the point? I don't need to read your book or 2 pages to figure this out.
There's also entirely italicized sentences that indicate faults of the main character.
What? That's dialogue. Oh my God, you're right. That's narration. I thought that was dialogue. If it's dialogue, you're okay.
No, it is internal monologue.
Oh God, this is so bad.
Oh my god, he's thinking about a raindrop on his hand. I like drizzle, he'll be fine. Damn it, when's this bus coming? Man, what riveting writing. Honestly, I'm on the edge of my seat. Anyway, where's that bit?
And look, she knows how to do a long dash. She's probably going to overuse that as well.
That's a cut. Yeah, that's okay. Fair enough. But yeah, no. This gets very confusing when you do that, and you have to be consistent for it to make sense, but she does it everywhere. She does it in dialogue as well as narration, and it's just hard to follow. Anyway.
And in an argument they had is her not standing up for him. You may not agree with that reasoning, but it's a reason that you could potentially understand if he went about it in a way that wasn't completely sexist or delusional. I had to tap into the mind of my ex to write this.
Oh, I knew this was therapeutic
projection.
This is therapeutic writing.
Oh God.
Like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with doing that, but it's not relevant to what you're talking about.
Yeah, she's a mind reader, and she knows the mind of her ex so well that she has to tap into it ever so often. Like she's some scared, forgotten girl. Like, oh, what was?
If it's really just about narcissistic behaviors, you can emulate that, but you don't need to tap into the mind of your ex in order to do that. You just need to read a couple books about it, maybe listen to some of those famous YouTube therapists that talk about these topics and explain them. And you basically get it down because it's a relatively simple pattern once you know how it works.
Well, she sounds
you don't need to think about your ex. You
like
rather analyze your ex and then realize that's how that worked.
Right.
Yes, every single girl that I know, her ex was an abusive asshole, and it's like, okay, that's fine. Then you meet these exes, and they're not abusive people. Every woman says their ex is an abusive asshole. It's just part of the course. I roll my hands now. It's just like, oh, he was abusive. You've learned so much. And he was abusive because he went, you know what, let's have dinner at 9 o'clock. And like, no, oh, and party at 9 o'clock, and that's abuse. So, yeah, no wonder we're writing shit.
Well, I don't mind people using real life experiences as influences, but you gotta massage it. You can't just say, I'm tapping into. It's like, no. You were influenced. You had an experience. You felt bad, whatever. You take that and you transform it into something better, more refined, more accurate, more pure, whatever the thing you're trying to accomplish. So if she's got that under her belt, good for you. You can write about it. But just, well, now I'm creating this character that's based off my ex, and I'm like, okay, whatever you're doing, the creative process, you explain it however you want. Just say this was from my own personal experience. Go with that. Don't try to romanticize the writing process. You just sit down and you hammer it out, and you work with that emotion. That's all you're doing. It's not some magical thing she's doing.
I'm just imagining now that her ex just woke up one day and went, you know what, after all these years of you, I'm becoming a bigot. And just like, I hate everybody. I hate women, children, men, blacks, oranges, yellows, everything. I'm becoming abusive. I'm just doing everything.
Well, the fact that she's writing so many internal monologues with italics and, I'm tapping it. It's like, no. You're writing that way. That's how you write. And therefore you think you're understanding their thought process. It's like, no, you're not doing that. You're not even close to doing that. That's a whole other discipline. You're just writing. You're what, 24 at most? I don't know how old this girl is. So, I don't know.
My avatar's probably 48 or something.
Okay, I have no.
I would argue maybe an early 20s college student.
Maybe, I don't know.
There are way better ways to portray thought processes of characters than that. Because most people don't consciously think in words about the things that are going on.
They also don't have too
I'd
many.
be the old-fashioned go off to the side of the stage and just speak all your thoughts.
Oh yeah, like
People can do that more often in life.
Yeah, we just have this pause, and then all of a sudden this guy just starts blurting out his thoughts. And you're like, okay, thanks. Every sentence has to end with an exclamation mark. Like, oh.
Every conversation takes twice as long because everyone's doing Shakespearean and waiting for monologues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to wait for the other person to finish the internal monologue before the next sentence is being said. It's gonna be really.
Anyway,
I want to see that movie.
Someone's bought her book. Good for her. She's doing well, I guess. Anyway, let's keep going.
Bigot, it is absolutely necessary.
Why are we watching Fresh Prince in the background?
I don't know, because Carlton's an asshole?
I don't really remember there being an episode with a racist.
There's plenty of episodes.
Doesn't need to be.
People.
Or
But
bigot,
Carlton is a big.
so to
Carlton,
speak.
that's Carlton. Carlton is a bigot.
Okay, I guess I don't remember that episode, but fair enough. Here's the Giga Chat. Thank you, sir. I'm thinking if I'm this bitch's... Okay, let's be nice. If I'm this person's ex, and I read this pure all dog shit she's produced, I thank my lucky stars I had the wherewithal to get away from this basket case. This woman probably smells like boxed wine and cat pee and is on a daily SSRI cocktail diet. Well, that's a bit harsh, okay? Writers are a bit weird, but it takes all kinds to be a writer. And how they explain that is an art and skill all by itself. So maybe her grammar and understanding of English is not as good as it should be, and her understanding of humanity is not as high as it is for the rest of us. I'm just biased because I've gone through this. I've talked to authors and teachers, so it's not this a magical, I have to tap into. It's like you're just trying to sound romantic. You're just trying to be special. It's not special.
She sounds like Brian Griffin describing a writer being a pretentious hack.
Right.
For the point of, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the character. Yeah, that's called empathy. That does help you write the characters in a believable fashion because you understand what drives them and along which framework they reason and therefore act.
Yeah, when you listen to
good for her that she is able to do that.
When you listen to the interviews of Harlan Ellison and how he explains how to write, it's very simplistic. It's like there's nothing romanticized about writing. It's just you sit down, you whatever thing that gets you to keep writing, do it. And whatever it is you want to talk about, it's from your own experience. After a certain point, he will give examples of what not to do, like stop when you're hot is a good one. But there's no magic. It's basically like bricklaying. You're putting one brick in front of the other. It's dirty. It takes time. It's sometimes very fulfilling. It's sometimes very difficult. Everyone does it differently. So I just don't like the romanticization of it. It's hard. Do it properly. Don't waste my time. All that other stuff I've been drained into me. Anyway.
protagonist to sound like a cartoon villain. If you want that prejudice to sound or feel real, you have to get inside the head of your antagonist. This is not to make people sympathize with your antagonist. Instead, it is to make the interaction or experience feel real and genuine, and not sound like a wish fulfillment or an r/that happens.
There's one problem with that. If you've met real psychopaths, they do and some narcissists, some extreme cases of narcissists, they do sound like cartoon villains. They do talk like that. It's absolutely baffling. They sound unreal. And the problem with writing is that writing needs to be believable and make sense. Reality doesn't. So, yeah, okay, don't rewrite you're right. Don't just rewrite your "that thing happened to me" thing, because reality doesn't follow the rules of logic in that regard.
The action hits harder when there's a motivation for it rather than when it just comes out of nowhere.
They always have motivation, and sometimes it's just sadism. That is a thing. Some people just enjoy hurting others, and therefore feeling powerful over them.
Yeah,
that's all.
She's just describing a plot, and that's fine, but that's like the first thing you learn. So this has nothing to do with a particular character or characterization.
Yeah. Some people are just assholes, and they bloody love it.
Okay.
Inside the mind of such a prejudiced person. I don't even know why they decide to do what they do. Why they
don't
believe
decide.
What they believe. No one wants to be racist. Nobody wants to be prejudiced. Many people...
Why not?
No, that's a projection.
Yeah, I'm quite sure there's plenty of people who hate other people for being different. And we see that every day on Twitter. So it doesn't matter what the racism or prejudice is, it's going to happen. And they do it because they've been doing it for years or whatever. You're a Democrat. Oh, I gotta hate you, or vice versa. It's the same thing.
You know, hating people or being racist is not a decision you make. Just like your sexual orientation. It's not something you decide. It's a thing that happens.
Well, they are. They think what they believe is fact and not prejudice. Here are some quick and potential reasons of what may motivate your character to be prejudiced. Being raised into it sounds like a very easy option that's a nice quick fix for a character, but it's a lot harder to portray than it sounds. A lot of us don't really have past experiences to draw on.
Wait. So a backstory where they're born into a prejudice, like a nobility or a class or some sort of group?
Just something very simple. Like in East Germany, we had Chechen neighbors who always broke into our cellar and stole stuff. And in the big garden, in the garden association, we had also Chechen neighbors that were throwing used alcohol bottles over the hedge, and that led to very bad thoughts about Chechens in general, because it was always the Chechens doing the bad stuff. So you develop it's pattern recognition that leads to threat avoidance, because I met mainly people from that background that are shit, so let's be wary about other people from that background. That's not necessarily evil or hateful.
It's
but
just
that's part
ignorant.
of the upbringing.
Yeah, and
it's not ignorance.
And there's nothing wrong with writing a character that has a backstory that is surrounded by people who are different, and they're taught to think of them as a certain way. That's not complicated. That's pretty normal. So I don't see why that's difficult. Anyway.
Or we don't think we do. And for me, that's what Reddit is for. Just going through
Lord.
Ask Reddit threads on people who were raised into this kind of stuff, drawing on those stories instead of your own can be a very good substitute for writing what you know.
No.
What?
Well, I missed that.
Here's something you need to understand about Reddit, with like Off My Chest, Ask Reddit, whatever. You need to understand that at least most of those stories people tell are fake, and they're just looking for sympathy and trying to leech off of other people to gain attention.
I want to know.
Was Reddit a mistake?
Yes, Reddit was a mistake.
I want to know what sequestered world she grew up in where she's never heard of bigotry or people hating each or kids not fighting over dumb shit. Like this is
the communist utopia.
Oh yeah, she was there. She was totally cool. Everything was perfect.
It could also be the Jehovah's Witnesses utopia. That's kind of similar.
Well, I don't think Reddit is an alternative solution to I don't know what to write. Let's go find out online, and Reddit is the destination. That's not a.
Reddit is a shithole.
You don't want to go to YouTube comments. You don't want to go to Twitter. You don't want to go anywhere. Don't do that. Read books. Read books about the time period you're writing, and then you get a vibe, get a feeling for the people and the language and the grammar and the manners and all the slang, all the beautiful terms that you could use as a personality, a persona, if you will, for your characters to write them a certain way. That's it. Don't just read. Just read. Read good stories in the thing you like, and then I bet you could write them back. It's not that difficult.
A man in the 13th century. How do you think I wrote this book?
Reddit?
Research?
I'm assuming she went to Reddit. Oh, God.
Guys, go buy my book. Buy my book. Look at this. I wrote this. Go buy my book.
Yeah.
You could keep reading. You could keep reading books about medieval times. You could talk to experts on the topic. You could go to a medieval fair. Some of the reenactors tend to know quite a lot of stuff.
All right.
You could go to a museum and read the stories that are behind what they found on these people.
Everything that is not Reddit.
Okay, I'm sure there's some gems on Reddit, but I wouldn't recommend that as a first stop.
Well, how do you, if you know nothing, how do you know how to sort the wheat from the chaff?
I would argue once you've actually read a book and you go to Reddit, you will be able to say, hey, this person's full of shit. I won't do that. So you've already eliminated what you shouldn't do, which is kind of the opposite, but at least you are eliminating things as you find your journey of good writing. Anyway, Threadnought, thank you for the 5. Here we go. Bigotry includes treating others with kindness, regardless of who they are, not hating people based on inherent characteristics, and not being a... Okay.
I see what you did there.
So the example is that you could take like an honest-to-goodness Buddhist or Catholic, and they're like, I'm going to care and be compassionate for anyone by virtue of being in my discipline. Yes, that is also a bigot, but that's the positive side of things. So we don't use that term because it's usually a negative connotation. So yeah, again, writing a character who's a bigot is very easy.
By the name of Yemi de Jong has a lot of really good rewrite scenes, and one of them I want to show you here, which is a really good example.
Why would you bother with that cartoon?
In the original High Guardian Spice, Aster is kind of an asshole just to be an asshole. In this rewrite, he's not sexist for the sake of being sexist. Rather, he's being...
Why are you wasting your time on that cartoon?
I don't know.
That's a
I know it's not relevant, but my God, that animation looks terrible. It literally looks like PNGs in front of a flat background.
Well, she or whomever did this rewrote the scene with keyframes, I'm assuming. So it's a rough sketch.
I'm talking about like of the actual, when they're showing the actual show. This here is obviously a rough sketch. And, you know, it's better because there's actual effort gone into drawing it.
Yeah. Hawk?
Yeah, I'm just saying that the blonde one is a bloke.
Apparently.
I guess. I wasn't sure at first either, because you never know with the...
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's... Can't... My God. No wonder this show was terrible.
Okay, let's keep going.
being objective because that's what he's been taught. In this scene, Aster is used to his sisters relying on him to protect him, so he just automatically thinks all the other women that he's going to meet are the same. It's not Handmaid's Tale sexist.
That doesn't make him a bigot. He's just a kid. He doesn't know any better.
That's
kids are dumb. Yep.
But still a sexist ideal. Perhaps there is a tragic incident in somebody's past.
Is she trying to say that him saying that men are stronger than women is a sexist ideal?
or a man's job is to protect the women he cares about is a sexist ideal.
In a world where there are swords and sorcery and monsters, and a brother to a daughter or a sibling is defending their siblings against monsters, that's a pretty natural progression. That's not bigoted. That's not sexist.
Can't be very threatening monsters if the girls can all defend themselves.
Oh yeah, I mean they're little slimes, but that's not a good example. Like that's a horrible example. That's normal.
I mean in general. Why do you need protection?
Well, yeah,
at all then?
Even with siblings, I think an older sibling would want to protect their younger siblings naturally, whether boy or girl. Yeah. So that's a good thing. This is a good form of being a naive older brother or older sister. It's not sexist.
An immigrant shop putting their parents out of business, or a violent incident that they wrongfully applied to everyone of a specific people group. Like in the Bloodlands saga.
People group.
Oh my God! Stop talking about your book.
This is the fourth
people
time.
Group.
Oh
she
my
said
God,
people group.
And this is just an advert for her fucking stupid book.
It really is.
Which she wrote without knowing anything about medieval shit, but she wanted to write a book with medieval shit.
So she went to Reddit.
Reddit is. I guess
she cares so much.
This is like it's like trying to learn about accountancy and going to crackheads.
The internet is full of people who think that feudal serfs were celebrated and only worked 3 days a week and 5 days out of the year.
What, they didn't?
Anyway.
No, that's a bit of a hyperbolic exaggeration, but there's people who genuinely
my
think
comment
that...
totally wasn't sarcastic.
Okay.
Medieval time was wonderful. Everyone enjoyed themselves. It was a wonderful,
peaceful time.
And they totally didn't live in filth and worked from sun up to sundown until the day they died.
Yeah, they didn't die. Average life expectancy was 35, 40, something like that.
Yeah. It was
all the Baltic Prussians because they killed his father, enslaved the rest of his family, and horribly mistreated him. People like this tend to cling.
His hatred doesn't sound like bigotry. It just sounds like, survival instincts.
Honestly, that sounds pretty justified.
Yeah.
Hey, those people over there? They're going to rape and kill everyone you know. Yeah, I don't like them. Wow, you bigot. It's like, no.
Oh boy. Anyway, how does this relate to this cartoon? Let's find out.
On to anecdotes. When I think of people like this, I tend to think of people like Jenny McCartney and her autistic son. Despite all the evidence that vaccines don't cause autism presented in front.
Oh boy, where are we going?
Okay.
Oh Lord,
it's gonna be interesting.
You were showing a valid example of racism done well in a cartoon, and then you cut to some blonde-headed, blonde.
Let her finish.
Mom.
Let her finish.
Yeah, let her finish her career.
All right.
Just play.
We still hear her say, "My son is," showing that no matter how much evidence you may present these people, they'll still cling to their personal experiences. Maybe that prejudice is cultural and
Right.
What? I thought. Look, you are watching High Guardian Spies. Shouldn't you be in the camp of my lived experience is valid? No.
I cannot believe.
What does she mean by these people? Sounds bigoted to me.
It's funny because if you try and tell somebody that vaccines do not cause autism to a person where their child has got autism from something, it's a bit like, well, you can't convince that person because they've already got evidence contrary to what you're arguing.
If there was a noticeable personality or behavioral shift before and after, then that might be cause for investigation on whether there is something similar happening that could be misinterpreted as causing autism. But that isn't it being investigated because everybody's talking bullshit.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you try and say this thing doesn't happen to someone who the thing has happened to, well, it doesn't matter what evidence you bring forward because you're coming from a wrong, standpoint. It's a bit like telling a woman who's been raped. Well, rapes don't happen, and it's like, but they do. Oh, well, you're just bigoted. Well, no, she's had that thing done to her. You can't tell her it doesn't happen. That's not a bigot. That's just someone who's had something happen to them, and you're trying to gaslight them into just accepting that it didn't actually happen.
Yeah, what's relevant is how she treats her son now, not what she thinks caused him to be the way he is.
Okay.
At society, or maybe it's within a specific time period. Now, time periods are another story and a separate topic entirely, but normally it involves echoing the sentiments seen in pieces from that time period. Like when writing the Bloodland Saga, I looked at society's views on women at the time, their roles, their rights, etc. Let's look at a more modern example. For this example, I'm going to draw from a story that my boyfriend told me. My boyfriend is from Central Asia, he lived in Russia for 8 years, and his brother still...
What?
Jesus. This just sounds... Is this the same? Is this not the same?
Okay,
No, this is on UX.
Oh, really?
You know, when
her new future ex.
when the main guy from Shadiversity wrote his book and promoted his book, he didn't bring it up every 12 seconds. He just said, "Hey, I wrote a book. It's linked in the description," and then talked about what he wanted to talk about.
Chat's at 20 seconds. Please quote the chat properly.
Where did you say this? The future ex Bigot, Mrs. Bigot, came from? Did you just say Asia?
Right.
And it's a bit like, so all Asians are the same, are they? Sounds very bigoted.
Well,
I mean, we know they're bad drivers.
Well, they gotta...
No, but Asia includes, India, Pakistan, the Middle East.
She showed a map. She showed a map from which part.
But why would she do that?
Just said Central Asia, like...
Yeah, but think about it. My girlfriend is from this part of the country and has this... She went to live in this country with this flag. It's like, what are you doing?
That's not relevant.
Just say, my significant other did X.
Russia?
It means he's got a diverse background and therefore is super awesome.
Oh.
By the way, do you know that I wrote a book?
Anyway.
And I read a Reddit page about it.
Maybe her... I don't know. She's getting influenced by her boyfriend of how to write. I'm like, okay, is he good at writing at least?
Is her boyfriend a mod on Reddit?
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, just trying to promote Reddit while you're promoting your book, dear. It'll work.
I was on Reddit and read a great post, so I wrote a book and I found out he was really good, so I became his girlfriend. Like, okay.
He doesn't know about it just yet.
Okay.
I don't know.
My boyfriend's brother looks very Central Asian,
Okay.
and he still works as a dentist in Russia. And he once had somebody, a white Russian patient.
You can't just say he looks very Central Asian. There are many nations in Central Asia.
It's a pretty big place, yeah.
Asia is big.
Central Africa.
It's like it's an entire continent or something.
With numerous ethnicities.
That's like that'd be like me saying that Hawk or Whisp looks very European. That's technically true, but that doesn't really define anything.
Central European.
What she's trying to say is, my boyfriend, the slanty-eyed one, he got insulted by some Russians for being slanty-eyed. You're like that? Right, okay.
A little rusty on my geography, but I thought UK was over on the western side of Europe.
Did he look more Tibetan or Southern Mongolian?
Well, let's hear about her boyfriend's brother's dentist experience.
Why is it always dentist?
Did not want him as her dentist and requested an ethnic white Russian instead. Now, it can be hard to put yourself inside the shoes of this person, but let's look at the reasons why she would have said something like that.
I can give you a German example. We've had a couple Turkish dentists that were kind of crap, so people started avoiding the Turkish dentists.
Well,
And rather wanted...
Why did you want a dentist? Well, when he started taking the laughing gas himself, I decided I didn't want to be in the same room.
Maybe she has good experiences with people of a certain background as for a dentist. Maybe that's the case. Like I like my Italian Spanish barbers more than I like my other barbers, right? That's just my preference. It's my experience. That's my bias. I accept that. But that's what the customer wants. Who cares?
Wait. Slavs are white again?
Oh yeah.
I thought they were made people of color because they have had a hard time without English immigrating into the US. That was the logic. And that and allegedly they're often unemployed for some reason. That was the logic why they were declared people of color. Maybe not everyone got the memo. Also, in Eastern Russia, in Siberia, people do look Asian.
Yeah, because part of Russia is on the Asian plates.
The majority.
Yeah. It's like 95% of it is in Asia.
Yeah, they have a border with Japan.
And Mongolia. And China. And a lot of other nations.
All right, here is Sadie Inward. I know some YouTubers make a lot of money, but good Lord, people like this woman make me want to tell these people to get a real job. She probably does that cringy thing where she has her characters use modern talking points to critique the past.
She has a very insecure inflection where a lot of her sentence seem to have question marks at the end when they shouldn't. So maybe that seems to correlate somewhat.
Usually when writers talk about their work, they talk specifically about conflict or the scenarios that their characters are in. They don't start analyzing the diction or the slang or the characterization. That's sort of, I want you to discover that for yourself. I don't want to reveal everything. I want to just say, this is a story about Bob, and Bob does this thing, and there's this really cool scenario where this thing I really focused on because it was so important to me. And there's usually like one anecdote or one element that they really tell you. They don't just start analyzing it like they're taking it apart. That's not what you do. Or at least for the purposes of teaching. I don't think I would use my own work as a form of a teaching tool or poetry or prose. I would not do that. I would look to someone who's far more advanced or has written a lot more and say, okay, here's one example of a technical level that we can use and why does it work well. So this is just a story from her boyfriend. So it's like, okay, I guess you can use this as an example, but I wouldn't do that with books. That's a little too much. Keep it humble. Have it yours to discover. If it's not worth talking about, no one's going to buy it to read about it. So I don't like revealing stuff in books. Anyway, let's keep going.
That this dentist was not going to be able to understand her? Did she think that he earned a foreign degree that may not be of the same quality as that earned in Russia? Or does she think that all Central Asians are backwards and can't perform dentistry like Russians can? All of these are pretty racist thoughts.
No, they're fine. This is fine.
If you had bad experience with people from a certain ethnicity to be bad at the profession, you start pattern recognition for threat detection and prevention. That's a natural thing. Having an in-group preference is not immediately bad. It can go overboard, then we go into problematic territory, but generally, don't just hate on people just for having an in-group preference, especially when it's about something like dentistry, where people have bloody fears of hack job dentists in the first place, because there's a lot of them, and they scar and traumatize people, especially children. Maybe have some empathy here, some compassion.
Well, either way, if she doesn't like this dentist, she could always find another one. It's not hard. There should be plenty of dentists in Moscow, wherever this supposed world is. I don't know. So,
well, there are also border cities with China that have a lot of Asians in them that count as Russian. And man, the last Turkish dentist I went to broke my upper jaw twice.
oh my god.
Oof.
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay.
That
Also,
sounds like a malpractice lawsuit.
Well, I wasn't really in the shape for that. And when in the night that followed the strings, whatever were ripping with a nice ding sound that I woke up from. The surgeon, they had to wake up in the hospital while I was swallowing a lot of my own blood that came out because she, as a pain med, she prescribed me a very strong anticoagulant, so it never stopped bleeding for 5 fucking hours. That surgeon then couldn't use any sedatives because it wouldn't work anyway, and he complained about the bloody knots that were tied that were complete garbage, and it took an hour without any pain meds. It was great. And he cursed so much about the dentist who had done this hack job in my mouth. It was cathartic.
I'm sorry I'm laughing at that, but that sounds terrible.
It was. I lost about 1 liter of blood that night.
So it's very possible that a person might have a very opinionated thing about what they spend their money with, especially when we're talking about medical operations like dentistry. So, yeah, I think you're allowed to have a bit of prejudice towards medicine. Anyway.
Some countries have lower standards in their teaching and giving out licenses.
That's usually born out of a desperate necessity for medical positions.
It is interesting.
Yeah, there are countries in Africa where you get a doctor, where a medical doctor that wouldn't even stand against a nurse in Germany. So you can't just translate these people here. You just can't just plant them, pluck them out, put them over here, and say that's a doctor. No, you're beneath a nurse.
All right. Anyway, let's keep going.
In levels of prejudice, but they are nonetheless motivations that are shaped by culture and society. As Turkmens were colonized by Russia and are still seen as inferior by...
No, it was just experience, their own experience with a dentist. She wants a dentist her way because she's the customer and she has every right to say, I want this done with me with this person. This is medicine. I don't care if she's biased. I don't care if she hates Asians. She knows. You need a doctor
you can be comfortable with.
Yeah, this is kind of important. Like, you could be the most biased person in the world, the most hateful person in the world. You are putting your faith into another person, and if you're not comfortable, you have every right not to do so for whatever reason.
Maybe she got raped by an Asian and therefore doesn't want an Asian messing around in her mouth.
Which has nothing to do with other Asians around her that are dentists, but that's fine. You can have that opinion. It's your experience. That's your life. It's great.
Asian dentist.
This is a weird example.
Yeah. Anyway. Let's keep going.
Racial and other reasons. So here is where this all comes into play. Say you had to recreate the scene based on just what I told you. How would you write the dialogue? Would you have this woman stand up from her chair and go, "Ew, gross, this is disgusting, I demand a white dentist"? Or
modern writers probably would.
An assistant aside and say, "I don't feel comfortable with this dentist. Do you have someone more qualified, maybe someone with more experience, someone who is Russian?" Or maybe something simple like, "Could I have a Russian dentist instead?" See how one sounds like a fake Reddit post and the other actually sounds like a racist white lady? Both of these are...
Wait, so only white ladies talk like that? You are fucking racist.
So wait,
you're a comic book racist, just like you accuse others of being. Yeah, but you bigot.
But she's using Reddit, and now she's saying there's a fake Reddit post. She never mentioned there's fake Reddit posts out there that we should not be reading. What's going on?
Yeah, racist white lady. You fucking bigot. Have you listened to the Black City the Black City people in the United States? Man, they say this comic stuff shit every day.
And as to answer your question, modern writers would choose the former over the latter.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem with High Guardian Spice, so.
And just
modern
writers in general.
That does go to her credit.
Yeah, that's just 3 examples of that, though. And she said one of them sounds like a fake Reddit post, and the other one sounds like a racist white woman. And I'm like, which one's which in your mind? Because, like, asking nicely, what is that the fake Reddit post, or is it the racist one, or is it the one shouting? Is that the fake? It's a very strange mindset she's got here. Because the latter sounded really good, like, can I just have like a Russian doctor? I feel comfortable. Okay, that seems like a reasonable request.
Yeah. I remember when I got my LASIK done, I had multiple options. They said, which doctor do you want? These are their schedules. These are their when they're available in the next 3 months. So I had a host of doctors I could have gone to. They didn't care. They was like, yeah, we're all excellent. We're all certified. We've been doing this for years. Some guy was doing it for 25 years. He invented the damn thing. I was like, well, I don't need the top of the line. You're all great. Give me the one that's most available in the next 2 weeks. And he did a good job. The problem was my left cornea healed too quickly, so it caused it was like in 5% of the population this happens to people. So I had to do it a second time for no charge. So it was like, oh wow, that's sorry to hear that. We're going to fix that up. So it's all about what you get, what you pay for, and whether you want to spend that kind of money and time and go through medical procedures. So when we're talking about medicine, we're talking about things that can change your life. I don't care how much of a bigot or horrible person this is. It has to be authentic. It has to sound real, and the writing has to reflect that. So if they want to have that first example, maybe she had a traumatic experience. Maybe she had a horrible upbringing. Work with that. Play with that. If you're going to introduce anything to a story which stands out like over the top, I don't care if it's cartoony or this or that. You then have to sell that to the audience with proper setup or after the fact setup or backstory or whatever requirements you need. So all 3 examples can work. And I don't see what the problem is per se, provided you know what you're doing. And this is where she's like, well, don't even bother with the first one. That's horrible. It's like, no, it's fine. Work with it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not even that. It's the way she went. It's like, one, she goes crazy and has trauma. The other one is she speaks nicely. Now, one of them sounds like a fake Reddit post, and the other one sounds like a racist white woman. And I'm a bit like, okay, so the screaming and being racist is just Reddit, and then asking nicely is racism? That doesn't make sense to me.
You could also go super neutral and just have her say, I changed my mind, and just leaves and looks for another place.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched these Hallmark movies or Women's Television Network movies. Stuff like this happens all the time. There's some bombastic woman who's hysterical about something. She's obviously full of herself. You're like, okay, that's weird, but that's the scene. That's the conflict. It's this crazy person.
And man, work in retail. You will meet these people. Man, they exist. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they will flip out over nothing. And it's like, okay, we got to deal with that. How I would like to see her write that first scenario properly.
The world is filled with these cartoonish people.
Right. So, anyway, I don't know why she used that as an example, but that's what she said. Let's keep going. Here's the Copperell. Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's talk about a book written by someone with talent. So, in my book, made one of the main characters a genocidal war criminal for fun. It's not hard, but is fun. Yeah.
Mm.
If you make it believable, it's it's good to read. If it's not believable, people are going to go, I don't know about that.
Just look at Chief Palpatine. He always had fun.
Oh my god. Maybe not the best example, but yeah. He was indeed having fun. Okay, 8 minutes and a half. Let's keep learning.
Sounds like something you would actually hear in real life. Going off the Russia example, let's divert into homophobia. Gayness in Russia is cloaked in sin or taboo. People believe that LGBT is a choice. They believe that they are spreading sexual ideas to children.
But they are.
Oh no! Oh no!
Should I get out the headline from today about 2 kindergartens in North Rhine-Westphalia that added extra rooms for the toddlers to explore each other naked and in sexual ways? I wonder where that comes from.
There was I don't remember his damn name. I don't remember if he was a journalist or a teacher, but arrested for possession of child pornography after he was literally saying that these things don't happen.
Just with her saying, if they believe that it's spreading sexual information to children, and we all know that's not true, automatically anything she says in this entire video, I do not care about. I do not want to listen to anymore because she's just a liar. She's a liar who's grifting her probably crappy book and is telling people to read up on Reddit. So no, I'm completely done with this video now.
I wouldn't say she's a liar. I'd say she's misinformed.
Well,
she also forgot. She also didn't get the memo that everything's a social construct, including your sexual orientation. So you can just reconstruct it, don't you?
You can't be misinformed on this stuff. It's not possible to be misinformed.
It's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere.
Well,
it controls the entire culture. You can't be misinformed.
Denial is what I should say. She's in denial, so she just doesn't want to accept it. That's not really lying if you're not trying to actively deceive people.
Well, the fundamental premise that she believes about homosexuality is it's not a choice, whereas I
think she's cherry-picking from the ideology over the time of its development, the very things that she likes best for her version of it.
Well, I would argue that we could see this in both ways, and they're both correct, whereas it's a choice and it's also a not a choice. So she just believes in one thing, which is kind of a bigoted view about homosexuality in the first place, because there's nothing wrong with people being compelled by their own bodily autonomy to say, I'm attracted to the same sex, as well as people choosing to be attracted to the same sex. So that's, you both can be true. So she believes in a very bigoted way, as I said, that it's only one way. Whereas we know, no. We see this stuff being taught. They're trying to influence others, especially children. This is a problem. So I don't know.
And there are malicious types who deliberately go for the vulnerable and try to push sex on them when that should be completely prohibited, and technically is prohibited in their profession. But since there's no witnesses around, there's no one can prove any allegations against them.
Well, with someone with such supposedly a liberal-minded view of this topic, it seems she's very close-minded to the concept of choice.
Her stance, her bigoted stance, is gay people can't do wrong.
Well, gay people are just the way they are because that's the way they are, and I haven't thought about it any other way.
And they can't do anything wrong, and they're certainly not pushing anything onto children, while the news is everywhere, and the advertisement even comes from state propaganda in some instances.
I mean, there's literally a group that call themselves Gays Against Groomers for a reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
True, but in a society like Russia, not Russian cities, Russia, this is a cultural norm. Most humans have a fear of the unknown. A lot of prejudice.
Oh yeah, the fear of the unknown, the fear of having your assigned caretaker at home while you're too sick, trying to talk you into anal sex. That is, but just because because that's the logic, that's the angle of, you just need to try it out. You just don't know what you're missing out on.
And that's
this fear of the unknown?
What is this transition like? You go from Russians are homophobic to fear of the unknown. That's a weird transition.
Yeah,
You just need to give it a chance.
Well, I'm not sure what.
And guess also that's not just Russia. That's like the majority of the Middle East.
Well, I want to see where she goes with this. Let's keep going.
There are a lot of places in the world that have never seen another person outside of their race. A lot of people that are misogynistic rarely interact with women at all, giving them more room to make misogyny.
A lot of misogynists have had tons of experience with women,
which is why they're misogynistic,
including a damn lot of women.
Wait a second. So, how do these people go to the groceries without encountering women? I want to know how that works, or shopping in general.
I have no bloody idea.
All right.
Absolutely no idea.
Mail order.
But yeah, but there are a lot of women who hate women for being women.
Yeah.
They are
probably more than most men. I would argue they're very jealous.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of an episode.
You can just grab a bag of popcorn and sit back while you watch the women passive aggressively bicker and bitch at each other.
I'm reminded of an episode of South Park where Wendy is pissed off that all the girls are photoshopping themselves and getting boyfriends, and she's the only one who cares. The guys obviously know and just don't care.
Okay, here's the thread nut one more time. Thank you, sir. While we're out here making lazy book promotions, I want to take part. I do not have a book to shill, but I do like money. Oh. This is a curious YouTuber. I've never really quite grasped this mentality, but okay. How to write a bigot. Let's keep going.
Misogynistic and incorrect theories with no way to disprove them.
You
If
mean
someone
feminism?
has never really met anyone of this other group, they have no idea what they're like. And a lot of times, people just automatically assume that group automatically hates them because of their identity.
Really?
A lot of people are also scared of change, believing whatever change is coming is going to impact their
You just changed the topic. You didn't even have a conclusion. What is? Let's keep going.
daily lives.
What does this
You also have the
to do with
inverse
a
of
bigoted character?
Fear of the
Oh,
unknown.
you just don't want to change. Like change what? Change to the fucking communism, because the communists always bring up, hey, you're just afraid of change. You just try out our system. It's totally different from last time we tried it. And your system, yet we just need to change it to that. And once we have it, then change is not allowed anymore because we're in power. You're falling for scams, girl. It's all scams.
In case we haven't noticed, change is very hard to accomplish unless there's an entire removal of people in power. So, yeah.
Well, that's why. Yeah, well, that's why socialists want violent revolution all the time.
Okay.
Me from Ruby. Vice automatically thinks that the faunists just hate humans, unaware of the other aspects that may influence that. Her entire rant in this episode is the perfect example of upbringing and fear of the unknown. Vice has likely never met any faunists in person, and Blake changes a lot of things. But until that point, she just thought all of the faunists mostly just have a hatred towards humans. Homophobes and transphobes think it's a choice or a political
We're going back to
ideology.
this now?
And this
Oh, you innocent, ignorant little brainwashed twat. Most people who claim to be trans are not. And I'm keeping it short tonight. That's all.
is also many people have a come to light moment. Meeting people and realizing that you're not so different and that everything that you thought isn't exactly true. It's the easiest way for someone to overcome this ideology. So if you're looking to redeem
Which ideology?
this,
You don't even know that you're in an ideology.
What was the ideology?
Reflect.
She's fear of the unknown, or
What is she even talking about?
Random
lost?
rambling. Random woman rambling.
She's lost focus like 3 times now.
Yeah, that's normal. When we cover women, this happens.
okay.
It's like, remember when we cover Red, when we cover Noralities, when we cover Lindsay Ellis, it's always just random rambling with no connection, no context.
Unfortunately.
It's not autistic. It's just random.
Okay. 10 minutes. We've passed the 10-minute mark. How we lost Hawk. Hawk's just like, I can't take this.
Yeah, goodbye, Hawk.
He gets
Have
enough.
a good night, Hawk.
I'm sure he gets enough in his own life to deal with people and what have you. So fair enough. No offense. No worries. Plus his mic was acting up, so that's okay.
This is probably a good way to go. That Ruby episode is a good example, and there are real-life examples of this too. Drawing what I said earlier about being in a completely different reality, going down a rabbit hole can be very hard to write if you don't know what you're dealing with. As somebody who has been brainwashed in the past, I actually have experience with it.
You still are brainwashed.
You're just
You
brainwashed
still are.
in a different direction now.
You're not out of it. You're not out of it.
Somebody is surrounded in an echo chamber, constantly being fed really bad or fake news, fake studies,
like Reddit!
to where all of it becomes a reality for them. If Wayfair was actually selling kids on the internet, anyone would be upset about that. No one would actually say, oh, it's a good thing that Wayfair is selling children. Was it a true story? No. But
Maybe
when you're
it was.
surrounded by the media.
But because the cabinets were named after children who had gone missing. That's where people got suspicious. They never said Wayfair was actually doing it. They were suspicious of it.
Yeah, there are some very strange ways on how these things are conducted. Just because you can't imagine that that's how they actually do it, because it's so weird and so surreal, doesn't mean that's not actually what they're doing. Because hiding behind exactly that is a great way to hide.
That tells you that and constantly affirms your suspicions like that. That is your reality. It becomes real for you. Your reality is that Wayfair is selling children and that everyone else is just a cover-up or downplaying the situation and are scared to reveal the truth. You feel like you're a hero trying to bring the truth to the world, and that everyone is just standing against you and is just unenlightened.
Have you ever considered that's possible?
And a lot of times this often leads to developing a sense of community with the exact same people or an identity. And that community is incredibly hard to leave and just constantly reinforces.
Wait a second. Are we talking about
We've lost the topic
theory?
again.
And that the people
We've lost the topic again.
I know, but the people...
Her example is brainwashing, and that for some reason that this instance, that this is highly suspicious, and did change practice, suddenly, once there was attention drawn to it, that's not a good example of brainwashing, because, man, that thing looked hellishly suspicious.
Because here's the thing, even people on both the left and the right were saying, yo, what's going on with that? Why are cabinets being sold for thousands of dollars, all with the names of missing children?
Yeah, but I don't think this is a community. I don't think because everyone went,
no.
This is a weird thing that's going on.
This is just her thing about calling this what the left does. They call, the socialists do, they call everything a community just because it's a loose connection of people.
Oh. Well, the best example we could think of is those who believe in the trans movement. Like, that's their community. You have to defend their rights, whatever those are.
It's a wonderful community that totally doesn't punish anyone who comes to the realization, oh wait, maybe this isn't true about me. Maybe I'm not trans, and then they call you a traitor and try to drive you to suicide. And it's great. It's great community there.
And you hate everyone who goes against you or disagrees. Yeah. Anyway, 12 minutes almost.
That you feel like being like this is a part of you, and if you were to leave it behind, you'd lose a special part of yourself, or you'd lose a community of friends that you built up.
Maybe it's the only thing you ever had.
Incels feel whenever they do find a girlfriend. When some of them find success, they become hesitant because they've grown so attached to this community online, and a lot of times they unintentionally or intentionally sabotage themselves because now they see this as a part of who they are.
Yeah, that's why feminists also don't let women out of it when they realize, oh, you know what? I actually would like to have children and be a stay-at-home mom. They don't let those women out either.
Incels? What does an incel have to do with this?
Well,
She just explained that you just need to read the what's on the screen.
She's jumping to the next topic, and this one can be pretty much translated to the first one, which is a backstory. You're grown up around that. That could be tragic. That could be hardship. This is getting kind of not splitting hairs, but she's just trying to find reasons to do this. Like, it's all motivation. It's all backstory. So just say conflict. There was a backstory of a person who had hardship. It's like, okay, and they were raised in it. Oh, that makes sense. Like, this is not like she's really trying to figure out all these versions of it. It's like, you don't have to go through all these iterations if you understand the underlying premise of motivation, why someone would think this way.
It feels like she's gone really far off topic.
Yeah, I mean, tragic events, yeah. Every event should have some level of pain or discomfort or hardship or things that don't feel good. This is kind of like we're talking about writing for writing, not as opposed to the actual issue of how to write a bigot. Like, hey, by the way, when you write a sentence, use a period. It's like, oh, yeah, punctuation. Thanks. Yeah, I get it.
Tragedy can break a person down and turn them into a completely different person. In undergrad, I took a class on politics of the Middle East. For one
personality course tends to stay intact.
Why is she bringing up all these political issues?
On
Why is she doing this? She says
because she's brainwashed and doesn't realize it.
It's like, I'm going to make an apolitical video. By the way, half my video, if not most of it, is all about politics. Okay.
It's not. This isn't relevant. The political conflicts of the Middle East are not relevant in how to write a bigoted character.
Yeah, they could have had any hardship of any fictional character who was part of one group and the other group attacked them, or they wiped out a village and they were part of that village. They survived, so they have survivor's guilt. They have revenge persona. They got all kinds of issues. So you could have just said that.
Is she portraying Turkish nationalism that is pretty much fascist? Actually fascist, as a good thing here, or what is she going to be
tragedy
portraying this as?
Yeah, I don't know.
I've thought of another bigoted character just now, Rosie in Valkyria Chronicles. She hates what's obviously the Jewish stand-in. I forget what they call that race, because her village was wiped out by an imperialistic force who were targeting them, so she blamed them for it.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, there's logic there. There's your trauma. She blamed the wrong people.
People in Tunisia were suddenly turning to ISIS. And the men that were turning to ISIS were completely unreligious. Didn't pray 5 times a day, drank, basically my boyfriend. A Muslim in name only, if you will. But with severe economic downturn and government corruption, they suddenly fell on very hard times, and several studies have shown that in times of hardship, people are more likely to turn to religion or spirituality or extremism. Why do you think cults grow so big? They prey on desperation. And when people face hardship, sometimes it's just easier to shift the problem onto something else. And it's very easy to misplace blame in what's going on.
So
is she recording these in different takes? Because the audio quality is different in those lines.
Yes.
It's like she's using 2 different microphones.
Yes.
I was going to say that, is she saying religion is bad, or is that just normal? Like, I don't get what's happening here. Is it tragic that people go and find God? Or that they find God and go, oh.
No, this was a random complaint that is basically a political complaint in a way. That ISIS wasn't practicing religion as she thought they had to.
Yeah, but then she jumped into, well, people who go through tragedy or whatever, desperation, find God. It's like, is that bad? Do they become bigots, but now they're no longer bigots because they found God? Or like, what do you, like, is it the opposite? They become even stronger bigots?
Can we just go back a little?
I don't think she explained herself at all.
Okay,
desperation. And when people face hardship, sometimes it's just easier to shift the problem onto something else. And it's very easy to misplace blame in what's going on. Looking at all these reasons...
You're basically describing the trans activists here who project all their problems on being trans when they're not. And then complain about the people who don't take them seriously. including the medical staff that tries to actually do their job and with proper diagnosis, and then they call them bigots because they don't give them the diagnosis that they want because they shouldn't get it.
If you're going to re-record don't re-record your lines in segments. If you have to re-record a take because you lost the tone, you lost your track, do it in one go, or at the very least, in close to each other, so you don't lose your tone or audio quality.
Yeah.
Because it feels like these line cuts with the quality changing drastically, it feels like they were recorded days apart from each other, and you're trying to match the previous tone.
Yeah, but that's the least problem right now.
Is not to say that you should feel bad for people that do these horrible things. A lot of us have hardship happen to us. Some of us may have been raised in a prejudiced upbringing. Some of us have a lot of fear of the unknown, but we don't go out and do these horrible things. These are definitely still bad people, but they are people nonetheless.
So, finding God is bad.
Am I allowed to defend myself against the bad people?
Notice she also used examples of her previous iterations. So she said, like, I had a different upbringing. That was the first example. So it's like, okay, so this is like ancillary to that? This could happen alongside being raised that way? So it's not really the main focus or the main cause, it's like a secondary thing that could happen?
She's not even describing how to write a bigot, she's just going off on a rant about seemingly nothing.
Yeah, and she thinks all the stuff she's saying is apolitical.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Like, I can understand a video on how to write the bigot, how to write an antagonist, like give a brief idea, a brief example, instructions on how you can write these characters. But that's not what this is. This is just a political rant about nothing.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, religion is bad? I don't know. Let's just keep going.
I want to believe that such hateful people aren't human. Unfortunately, they are still members of our species.
Oh, this is against Islamism.
Unfortunately.
You idiot.
Unfortunately,
this movement was against Islamism in Germany, committing terrorism. Right now, there is, in Denmark, a girl who tried to protect herself against a very forward sexual abuser, let's say, with mace and a so-called refuge seeker, and she is now being persecuted for battery, for defending herself against him.
Except spraying mace isn't battery, because you actually have to batter someone to be charged.
Yeah,
with
well,
battery.
maybe in your country. We are in socialist terrorized Europe here, where you're not allowed to defend yourself against people who try to grape you, because the left that keeps talking about how it's totally against grape culture brought it here and defends these people doing it because they are of the other, the foreign, the unknown ethnicity.
Well, regardless of what the political issue she's addressing, she's seeing whatever these people are, or I guess the counter to this, I don't know, as unfortunately.
This movement was giant, and it wasn't just right-wing people.
Well, I'm just saying she sees them as unfortunate humans, and you're like, no. You either give an objective view of what this is, or you shut your mouth.
Yeah, and as you can see on that transparent they're carrying in front, in the trash bin there is a swastika and there is the Antifa logo and some other things.
Oh.
And
the ISIS flag is in there as well. This movement was giant, and you cannot claim that this video is apolitical in general. You are insane. You are brainwashed. You are in a cult. You haven't left it. Maybe you have changed to another one, but bloody hell, are you in a cult? You should move next to one of these refugee centers. Maybe you'll get to know some of these unknown people that all these people here are just in fear of the unknown of.
And for the record, those roughly translate, the one on the top left there roughly translates to for the future of our children.
It doesn't roughly translate to that. It literally translates.
Non-violent and united against wars of faith on German soil.
Yes. Against religious fanaticism. Fanaticism. That's the other one. And by the way, I've had this discussion just yesterday. People who are pro open borders, they say, oh, but 80 to 90% of the people coming, they're fine people. Yeah, you know what that means? 10 to 20% aren't. And if you have 10 to 20% criminals, murderers, rapists, that's an insane number of murdering, raping people.
Also,
the normal number of criminals is 2%. If any demographic, whichever demographic you count, exceeds that, people notice, and this threat detection system in people springs up. In some earlier, in some later. But when you get into the double digits, that's basically society breaking down. So 80-90% good people, that is not enough.
It doesn't matter if it's just a minority of the people. It's enough to be a noticeable... It's enough for people to notice.
It's a very, very big minority.
All right. Let's
finish it up.
Yeah, we could stop right here. It's getting kind of silly. She just keeps bringing up these political issues.
She completely betrayed her disclaimer.
With showing this, it's like, take a picture of that, Google Translate, you can read what it says.
Right. When we address creative writing concepts or issues, we usually bring up books and examples of stories that people know or popular books. And we talk about, here, this character is like this is why it works. And it's usually by good writers or good authors. Classics. We don't just start talking about politics of the past few years. This is weird. I don't know what you're going to get out of this if you're going to learn how to write Bigot or any character who is one-sided or believes in one thing. But this is not going to help you. This is not going to... Learning about these issues that like current events, that's great. I think everyone should be well informed. But for fiction purposes, for constructing a narrative, this is not going to do it.
As a result, they work the same way that we do.
Lady, read...
Now that you've established the perpetrator, let's establish the prejudice act.
A perpetrator? What are you talking about? You mean the motive? A motive is...
Like I said, she's completely lost the topic.
Yeah, a motive is not a perpetrator. Those are two different...
I missed
The perpetrator is the person.
Can you go back a second, please?
Of our species, and as a result, they work the same way that we do. Now that you've established the perpetrator, let's establish the prejudice action that is going to take place. Remember, everything comes down to, you guessed it, motivation.
I think she has it the wrong way around.
Why did she put action on the... What the hell did that...
She first...
Didn't she just talk about
no
motivation?
Problem. She's doing it the wrong way around. She first establishes the perpetrator, and then the prejudiced action and the motivation for it. How about you do it the other way around?
Well, she's obviously a woman, so let's just keep going.
Yeah, that seems like it.
They think they're right in doing what they are doing. The severeness of this action should correlate with the strength of the belief. For example, someone who just thinks that women are physically weaker than men and that he could beat any woman in a sport at any time probably would do something like say something sexist.
Wait, the first part is true. The first part is true. The second part is just arrogance and delusion. Women should be banned from wearing makeup. What that's that logic? That's women. Okay, this is women logic.
That has nothing
in the back
to
alley
do.
Because she was in his presence. Overwhelmingly,
What?
prejudiced actions are provoked by something. It could be something minor, like bumping into someone and the bigot believing it was a jab at them as a person, or something major.
That's what also mainly women do, because they make up stories about nonsense like you do.
You're like finding at a crime scene and assuming they did it based on their appearance. Draco doesn't just go up to Hermione and just call her a mudblood. There is a build-up there. She did something to provoke his response. Again, very much not her fault. If you call somebody a slur just because they annoy you, that is your fault.
There are bullies who don't need any reason to start bullying.
Like I mentioned earlier,
they just do it.
He's an obnoxious little shithead who thinks he's the hot shit because his father works in the government.
Yeah.
He's a spoiled rich twat.
Yeah.
People, they don't see themselves as wrong. They think they are justified. Just remember, all actions have to make sense. The antagonist has to have a justification
Only in stories.
for what they are doing, no matter...
I think that's the most intelligent thing she said so far. All actions have to make sense in stories. I would agree with that, yeah.
The in stories I added.
Yeah.
She didn't say that.
Yeah.
How insane it is. Be it in the name of God, believing you're taking out evil, believing you're better than somebody, believing someone is insulting you, etc. Many writers will say that it is always best to draw from your own experience. But what if you don't have any experience as a bigot or any experience facing any of those isms? Well, that's what references are for. The best way to really get inside somebody's head is to look at the prejudice groups themselves.
You think you're smart enough to get inside someone's head by randomly finding news articles and listening and reading them?
Okay, let's see where she's going to go with this before we can pick it apart.
I mean, unless she's God's gift to psychology, I don't know how this is going to work, but okay.
Look at their demonstrations, their news. Pay attention to the specific language and rhetoric they use. It is often if you best copy that word for word.
So...
We have a rape epidemic in Germany. Thank you very much.
Kagita wasn't that the people against religious fanaticism? We just saw this.
Yes.
You know, the people where
was against
the
Merkel,
Nazi swastika in the fucking trash?
Yes,
oh,
yes.
Jesus Christ.
Okay,
stop it.
But she's saying, instead of getting into someone's head, which takes analysis and time and research, just copy their words. Just...
That move. So,
she just said religious fanaticism is bad. But
now
she's criticizing people. I'm sorry.
That movement was in response to Angela Merkel's open borders politics when we already had a growing rape epidemic from foreigners and terrorism. That's what that was against.
Yeah.
And it went through the entire population. This wasn't just some fringe right-wing bullshit thing. They tried to frame it as that. People from all generations were there, even other foreigners. You know? There were Asians, there were black people with that. There were Eastern Europeans. People from all over Europe that lived in Germany were part of these demonstrations. Tens of thousands of people in many cities. And the media was underreporting it and slandering it. And picking out, as they do, they always pick out the weirdos that they want to portray, in which way they want to portray it. Just like they make tiny demonstrations look big and give them a lot of room in order to portray themselves as totally positive and rational when they want to push that point that a group makes. They did the opposite with this one. They also did the negative portrayal when we demonstrated with several 100,000 people against data retention, which is unconstitutional, but the European Union wanted to push through, and our federal government said, but we have to pay fines if we don't do the unconstitutional thing, and then fuck the EU. But hey, what the authorities say up in Brussels, we have to do. We don't have a say. Democracy is a lie. Because we don't have a say. They just do what they want, and we just have to gobble it up. And when they say they're fighting, when the feminists say they're fighting rape culture, but actually importing tons of rapists that the actual refugees flee from themselves and want to take refuge from, then we are not to criticize anything. We are not even to mention the Yazidi girls and their mothers who left Germany again because their ISIS captors also came here and then stalked them. And our authorities did nothing, so they returned to refugee camps in Syria.
She was just complaining about religious fanatics, and now she's criticizing people calling out religious fanaticism.
Yeah, she's brainwashed. She's full of doublethink.
Well,
that's about
the
dumbest
issue
thing I've ever seen.
Let's just continue.
Yeah, the issue I see is that she's saying just copy the words. It's like she just gave a whole speak about motivation. Why don't you try and understand their motivation? The same way you would write about that. Like that's kind of obvious. But no, just copy their words. If you don't understand it, it's like, if you don't understand the motivation, then what's the point? Anyway.
Go on any pro-Russian thread that's talking about the gays, and you'll get a lot of inspiration there. For a lot of people, watching these groups like that can be very, very hard to do. It could ignite a lot of really deep trauma, or just make you really, really frustrated.
Why would it ignite deep trauma? This is weird.
You know what ignites deep trauma? Being ass-fucked as a child.
Okay, wait a second.
You know what's frustrating to me? You.
She said, go to these news items and sources to get, because you're not bigoted, you don't have bigoted experiences, and now she's saying, wait a second, this can cause deep trauma or reignite deep trauma. So you did have a bigoted negative experience or whatever. Why do you need to seek out these news sources now? Something's going on here. I don't know what's happening with her.
I think she's just using words to sound sophisticated.
She thinks that she can understand the background and reasons for why people are bigoted, except with these groups. There can't be any reasons why you could dislike the gays or the Islamists, other than it's just the fear of the unknown. Fucking idiot.
Easiest thing to do is to watch a YouTube video of somebody doing a deep dive into these groups. I always find that...
I hate that word. This is getting... I'm going to do a deep dive on this movie or this book. It's like, yeah, sure you are.
And it'll be in a completely unbiased, open-minded lens. Completely apolitical.
Well, when you do large book reviews or anything that's like detailed into one area, you focus heavily on the body or the work. You don't start rambling on about a lens or politics or God knows what. Obviously, she's not doing that here, but it's just every time I hear that, it's just like, oh, here we go. Some biased viewpoint on something that's going to have like 50% of the topic and the rest is going to be interpretation.
YouTubers doing reviews of these groups helps preserve a lot of my sanity. I will also...
Yeah, the ones that you like and you agree with.
So it's just, yeah, I bet she only watches reinforcing bullshit.
If you don't have any experience facing or dealing out prejudice, ask Reddit or simply watching interviews from
Never
others
ask
is a
Reddit.
great way into somebody's head. We can also take a look at other media that has done this successfully.
Why not talk to, I don't know, a psychologist or someone who actually does study people? Wouldn't that be easier?
Or, talk to actual people. Don't go on internet forums. Talk to people.
Yeah, it's not hard to talk to a therapist or a counselor because that's their job. They're happy to talk to you about what they do. Even if you don't seek therapy, just say, hey, what is this person or this personality all about? What does that issue deal with? What kind of person? They will have all kinds of stories of the people they've helped or at least dealt with. That would be the best obvious thing. If you have no experience, just talk to the person with the source and say, okay, thank you. I'll be inspired by that.
You're using logic again, Smud.
This is look, go to Reddit. It's like,
Don't go to Reddit. Never ever go to Reddit.
Shot, probably the most famous example of prejudice being portrayed in kids shows, and with good
because
reason.
It did it well.
The sexism scene in Madoka Magica is also a very good reference. The dialogue here is very natural. Sayaka's
It's very natural from a Japanese perspective of...
Is that the remake?
The 2000...
I've never even heard of this show.
Oh god.
Well...
I haven't seen the remake, and I don't remember any such scene in the original. Maybe I've forgotten.
2011 version, I think. I don't recall.
Yeah, that was when the original came out.
Yeah, so Madoka Magica is an adult story with this taking the seriousness of magical girls into the adult world. So
it's a properly done subversion of the genre.
I'd say so, yeah. So would you use that for sexism? Not really. I mean, maybe that one scene, but no, there's a lot going on. There's so many themes. That's why I say manga and anime is a little more advanced.
Yeah.
Because it's primarily a visual medium, so everything just works with that first.
Tends to not treat its audience as idiots.
And then we have the Japanese demeanor and the writing, which is a little different from like fantasy authors or any Western author doing science fiction. It's a different tone or genre. So I wouldn't go there. Not to teach the basics of, which I think she wants to teach is a antagonist character who is evil or prejudiced or whatever. Like that would be the simplest way of doing it. Not looking at anime. Anime is a bit too nuanced and a bit too detailed and cultural than what we're trying to achieve. Because God, there's so many weirdos in anime and manga that, you know, is that the best example of a villain? From like take Naruto, there's so many villains in that story. It's super popular, but I wouldn't use that as a template for, this Pain is a great example of what a villain should be. It's like, is he? I don't know. Superhero powered up dude who could take on armies. Probably not the best example. You want someone simple and clean and easy, like a short story villain. That would work. Anyway.
Not Griffith?
Well, if you're...
He is pretty simplistic.
To the average viewer, yes, I would agree. But to the YouTube critic, probably not. Anyway.
Natural. It makes sense for someone her age to just start talking to them rather than just going up and punching them in the face. The purpose of the scene is to have Sayaka give up hope on the world that she's been protecting and push her more into despair. The confrontation here seems to fit because it's more than just, hey man, don't be sexist. It tells us about the society. It contributes to Sayaka's descent in despair.
So what's the problem? How does that have anything to do with bigotry aside from the effects on other people? This is not the topic. You're addressing the ramifications after the fact, not the actual source. This is like me teaching how to build a hand grenade, and then she's talking about what happens when the hand grenade explodes. It's like, I don't care. I'm not here to talk about that.
Make a question if this world is even worth fighting for. The Teen Titans episode dealing with racism is an absolutely great reference. Valior even uses all the stereotypical racist one-liners, and we see the overt and the subtle discrimination, and we also get to see reactions. And I unfortunately ran out of time to go over reactions in this video.
No, you didn't run out of time. You can make the video as long as you want.
You wasted time. You wasted time talking about
lazy
motivation, where then you called it perpetrator, and then talked about motivation again.
Lazy. Dodging.
If you ran out of time, there's a reason for that. So just say, my cat is hungry, I gotta go. Or it's just... This is not an excuse.
Rewrite your script, dear alleged writer.
Oh, yeah, she's a writer, that's true, yeah. What happened? You ran out of ink? Like, what's going on?
Ink is expensive. Ink got expensive. Like, look at the inflation, man.
Oh, God. Okay,
not to mention, your printer won't print a black and white document unless it has magenta.
Yeah, I did an almost 20-minute video, but I'm running out of time. Like, what? Sure.
It's always good to look at some of the failures and learn from them. When I say failure...
So this cartoon's a failure?
That cartoon is a failure. I don't know why she bothers with it.
I mean, just look at that animation. That looks like a PNG in front of a...
It is!
Okay.
Failures, I mean Velma and High Guardian Spice. And no one wants to end up like High Guardian Spice. Don't end up like High Guardian...
Oh, she's admitting it's a bad animation. It's a bad cartoon. Why did you bring it up as an example then? This is like...
Because I guess the guy she talked about is sexist, apparently.
Yeah, but this is like bringing up a subpar movie and going, oh yeah, don't do that, but also do this part in it. Like, what? No, give me the best example of a thing you want to address, not this piece of garbage that is bad, and say, well, they did this right. It's like, wait, that is not all garbage then. What is happening? You don't do it. You give me the best example, not the tertiary or quaternary example. This is okay. This is a good example. Like, no. I think she needs a basic understanding of how to teach people things.
I think it's a typical mistake that is done in these circles where they only ever focus on the bad stuff and the good stuff is neglected. So it's always about the not that doctrine. You only talk about the not what things aren't, what they shouldn't be. And if there is an example for how things should be, like she glosses over it. I don't have time to talk about it. Because accidentally you could do things right. You should have gone over those lines that were so important.
Okay. Anyway.
High Guardian Spice has characters being sexist just for the sake of being sexist.
Because it was written by
women. You can
women.
really tell that is the case because the entire scene makes you want to cringe. If you've written...
So that's good or bad? Like, what is the problem here? I thought the whole point was to have a character you dislike so much that is so repulsive in the way they think.
Our problem is that, it's so unbelievably cartoonish that it destroys my immersion because reality isn't so comic, so cartoonish because she had never dealt with reality ever before, apparently.
And if we recall what she said, the example was the son or the brother is protective of his sister.
It's also strange that if she watched these alleged deep dives into the what she thinks are solely, purely, without exception, hate groups, then they must have picked the worst of the worst interviews for that, and comments and like street interviews, where she must have heard absolutely cartoonish stuff. So, yet it's still somehow not realistic. I don't fucking get it.
Next time, if you're making a presentation, give me the best example of what you're trying to talk about. Do not give me a subpar or kind of sort of example. That's not how you teach. Anyway, we have less than 2 minutes left, thankfully.
You question yourself, horrified by what you have just created, thinking you may have gone too deep, and you possibly feel disgusted with yourself at the end? You did it right. I never said writing was easy. The audience will never see it.
So
you have a massive problem of distinguishing yourself from the characters you write. Meaning, implying that you don't have actual empathy.
So let's write a story based off High Guardian Spice. We'll have a brother who's highly protective of his sisters, and he says, "Why would I not protect you? You're my sisters. I love you," and that is going to make your audience cringe, and therefore that's a good thing. This is backwards to me because this seems pretty natural the way she explained it. Like, you want older siblings to protect the younger siblings. Makes perfect sense.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't care if it's in a fantasy world or in a futuristic world. It doesn't really matter. You explain the motivation, the mentality of the guy. That doesn't make him a bigot or a negative traded person or character, rather. So again, this is a bad example, but she's using it, so I don't understand how that's done right. And the subjective emotional reaction to one of your audience members going, ugh, a highly protective sibling, that's cringy. And you're like, well, not really.
There's a lot of siblings who would be super happy about that.
That's like, natural. You could say it's bad writing and bad acting, but the idea itself isn't cringy, it's natural.
I don't grasp exactly. Like, if she had a better example, maybe we'd understand it more, but this is silly and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a bigot from a well-known story that we all can say, oh, okay, that's a form of bigotry. Like a villain should be no problem. Pick one. And we'll go with that. And then we'll say, oh, this makes me cringe. It's like, no, I understand his motivations. He's an egoist. He's a this. He's a prince, and he's in charge of a kingdom, whatever. That makes perfect sense. It doesn't make me cringe. And why would it need to make me cringe? Just to understand what a bigot is. A bigot is not some horrific, disgusting thing, like someone getting mauled by a, I don't know, rhinoceros or something. It's just, oh, it's the way this guy thinks. He's the villain. Fair enough. This is weird. This is just saying, hey, if you feel revolted, you're doing it right. It's like, well...
That's called looking up biased sources.
I know, but like, think of any thought I disagree with. I'm not going to have a revolted experience. Like, oh my God, you don't believe in Austrian economics. Oh, like, no, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. Like, this is a weird way to write characters. If you get an emotional reaction, therefore you're doing it right. It's like, no. That's silly. Either you objectively know how to write well, or you're rolling the dice. You're saying, hey, did you feel anything yet? Well,
are you feeling it, Mr. Krabs?
Yeah, keep trying. Just keep making more revolting characters until you feel that completely disgusted. Kind of like the creator of Berserk. He wanted to what would make Guts extremely what would make Guts angry? Like what would be the worst thing? And he said, well, killing your parents. Someone kills your parents, you get very angry at them. He's like, well, you can't do that with Guts. So what else would do it? Well, his family, his lover, like, don't kill them, but just like destroy their lives. It's like, oh, that would do it. Hence the title Berserk. So yes, she's right about motivation. I agree with that. That's great. That's kind of basic writing. But this is making an assumption about your audience to have a certain emotion, and a very specific emotion, which is highly subjective. Whatever cringe means to her. Okay, we're almost done.
But you will feel absolutely gross. What? Did you think that writing a dark, horrific topic was going to give you the warm fuzzies? Did you think jumping into...
Bigotry is not a dark, horrific topic. What are you talking about?
I think she has a very, I guess, not necessarily a narrow view of the word bigot.
There's a wrong view of it.
Yeah, talk about war, talk about killing, talk about rape and murder. That will make you queasy. It should, if you know how to write about it. But a bigot? No. That's silly. It'd be like, who cares?
To write them is easy? I'm sorry, did you think writing a bigoted character was going to be fun?
Yeah, actually it is.
Yeah, can be super fun.
Writing is in
because they're hilarious.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but for the most part, it's very revealing and uplifting at times, and also destructive when you're trying to get ideas out. But the topic is not...
because bigots can easily run into walls.
Yeah, no, there's so much fun.
That's the fun part.
There's so many fun things you could do with, like, look at the Preacher comic. I can't remember his name. Otto von Bismarck, I think. What the hell was his name?
The first German federal chancellor?
He's a German fellow, I know. But, so many horrible things happen to him. It's so funny. And he remains pretty much the same. Like, he turns homosexual. Like, he has this scar on his head, and he's bald, so it makes it look like he has a giant penis for a head. Like, all these funny things start happening to him. And he's a villain. He's the main villain of the story. So,
or if you want another example of bigotry being fun or funny, Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, watch it. It is freaking hilarious.
I have seen it. I'm just trying to think of bigotry examples.
Everybody in the town is racist, and their last name is Johnson.
Oh, they're talking about the black sheriff a lot. Is that the
sheriff is?
Okay. All right. Anyway.
It's a dumb movie, but it's hilarious.
Oh, it's great. It's one of those classics, like Monty Python stuff. Anyway, let us finish this off.
Oh no, you will most certainly hate yourself afterwards.
No, you don't.
But if you hate yourself afterwards, you're doing it right.
Are you?
No.
Okay, guys.
No.
Okay.
Self-hatred is the wrong thing to get from writing. What the hell is wrong with you? You're such a woman. It's if we look in the dictionary for a definition of woman, we get a picture of you.
If you are writing and hurting yourself to the degree she's referring to, something's really wrong. Yes, it is difficult.
You need a therapist, but for not the reasons that you think.
Yeah, writing is, I wouldn't say cathartic. It does get a lot off your chest. Obviously, you're expressing yourself, and it's therapeutic at times. But if you're hurting yourself, no. Like,
something's wrong with your psyche.
Can you imagine
seriously.
like going to the gym and like you gotta hurt yourself? It's like, no, that's when you stop. You take a breath, you slow down. I remember when I hurt myself, I was using the wrong muscle group. I had to stop completely and assess what I was doing wrong. If you were hurting when you're writing or you're stuck, stop writing. Do not listen to her. This is wrong.
The scene you created and you think, you know what, this doesn't sound like it should be in a kid show. This seems like something I'd see on the street. You did good. In conclusion, bigots are people and should be written as any other character. Every action has a reason. Write what you know or what someone else knows. And learn from others' stories and mistakes.
Wait, so don't write things as they happen on the street, but write things as you know them or others know them, which is probably from the street.
So fake it until you make it.
I don't get her.
I think she's trying to say something.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Whether you want to teach an important lesson or build up a character, prejudice and bigotry can do a lot for your work. But be warned that you may have to go into some ugly depths.
Are you serious?
I wonder if she even looked up the word bigot.
This is so pathetic.
Or she just uses the Twitter definition of anyone who's not my group.
I really
which
don't
is a bigoted worldview.
Yeah, I really don't think bigotry is some dark, twisted world. It's very straightforward. If you want to talk about war and what happens to the horrors of it, and all the killing, and all the lying, and all the things that the political nature of people, what they have to do to survive, that is some dark, twisted places. Bigots? Or people who believe
if she has that much trouble writing, then she can't ever make it.
Can you imagine Stephen King when he was writing whatever books in the 80s and 90s at 120 words a minute? And he was just like, oh, I gotta stop every two minutes to just breathe. I'm writing a bigot. Oh my God. Oh, so he's writing horror. He's writing demonic creatures killing and eating children.
Well, they take
the form of a clown for some reason.
Like, this is like, do you think he developed his skin after the second thousandth? Like, how many times he did all this stuff? Like, honey.
I think he gets off to it.
Well, I'm sure writers enjoy themselves, but it's as if she doesn't know what she's talking about. She has no experience.
She doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm going to read from the Oxford Dictionary. Bigot. A person who is obstinately or unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction.
Yeah, that's good.
She's a bigot.
Exactly.
I would say she's ignorant and is not a writer.
Maybe it's both.
It's the nicest way to put it.
All right. Let's end it with that.
Can we wrap it up?
Yeah. Do we really want to cover memes with this? It's like covering memes.
I mean, there are memes in
maybe
there.
next time.
Yeah. Oh, we got one more super chat. We'll cover it next time. That's fine. All right. The Copperal. Thank you, sir. It was hilarious to write my character. He caps a prisoner because of his race and shrugs when people yell at him. I even had him say, I killed 50 men. What a bigot.
I killed 50 men!
Yeah, it's so deadly.
Cotton Hill is a good example of a bigot character that's funny.
I don't think it caused anyone any self-harm by writing that character. Anyway, we'll cover memes another day. This was silly. This was just...
this was stupid.
I mean, if she ever went to school...
Vapid.
And learned what, like, from an actual teacher, she would be like, oh, wow. Everything I just said was pretty much pointless. So... we will cover the memes tomorrow if we're having a Smudcast tomorrow. If not, thank you guys for tuning in. That was a gigantic, horrible video. And thankfully, she ran out of time, so she didn't have to make any more minutes.
However that worked.
Time, just in a bottle.
She wasted a lot of time talking about nothing.
Well, we'll cover the memes another day because we got to go. And thank you so much for your suggestions.
Yeah.
And thank you, Hawk, for popping in and whatever you're up to. Hopefully you get your sound issues resolved and your love of humanity will be resolved as well after watching her or watching something else that's not her. That would probably help. So have a great night. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Have a